Hi, I'm Maurice Jackson. I'm alongside Axel Merck, one of the featured speakers here at Freedom Fest in Las Vegas. Axel, pleasure having you.
Great to be with you.
You're one of the featured speakers here today. Would you mind sharing with the audience what you've been discussing?
We discuss a lot what's happening in the world, and particularly the environment we're in. We think we live in an environment of financial repression, which means an environment where when you just try to hold your savings, the purchasing power is eroding. And the question is, what do you do about it? And of course, the standard thing is, oh, you buy stocks and bonds and so forth. Well, it turns out we like either stocks or bonds, and there is no easy answer when you have these aggressive interventions by policymakers. And at the same time, you're just trying to get by, preserve the purchasing power what you have, and so we're here to discuss the issues and then give people food for thought. That's most of what we're trying to do.
And some of those issues can you discuss the geopolitical events that are occurring right now that have an effect on that somewhat?
Sure. How many hours do we have? Well, let me talk about kind of two dimensions, the financial dimension and maybe the socioeconomic dimension.
Okay.
Financially, what's been happening is that we've tried to grow this world at just about any cost, with low interest rates, cheap currencies out of Asia, for example, causing a global overproduction, which means the consumer good inflation is low, but corporate America is squeezed in the middle, and so they lower the cost of labor. They outsource jobs to Asia. And so what happens is that we have like a little mouse in a treadmill or something like that in the spinning wheel, and what happens is that yes, you can keep an economy going, but at the same time, because interest rates are so low, people go into debt, and we're ever more interest rate sensitive. And so what happens now is that if anybody ever wants to raise interest rates, people are complaining and suffering. At the same time, because we're accelerating many of these trends that are happening, the social fabric is at risk of eroding. And in the U.S., we're not so satisfied. We vote maybe more on the left, more on the right. But in the Middle East, you start having revolutions. In Japan, you have a populist prime minister. And in Ukraine, we have a big mess, and the common denominator is that we're spending too much money, we're not living with our means, and policymakers never blame themselves. They blame the wealthy, minorities, foreigners, and so now you're an investor, and you see that the governments have very interest than you have as an investor. The governments, they want to erode the purchasing power of the currency because there's so much debt, and you as the investor on the other side of it. And so that creates for very challenging dynamics, and the more we quote-unquote kick the can down the road, the bigger the interventions are, because they're trying to fix the problem. By trying to fix it, they make it worse.
And it actually it exacerbates the situation. It doesn't make it better. I think you would agree?
Most of that, yes. And not always in the most obvious ways. And so everybody hates banks these days. But at the same time, if you want to have a credit-driven society, well, you need access to a banking system. Yeah. You can call it something else, but that's what you need. And so then we try to regulate the banks. Well, that's all great, but now we're getting rid of a liquidity provider. Not necessarily trying to defend the banks, what they have done, but you've got to live with the consequences. And we're living in an environment where, in my view anyway, asset prices are elevated. Every bear out there is in the stock market because they're afraid of staying behind. And guess what? One day somebody's going to say, hey, the glass is half empty, not half full. And who's going to be there to pick things up? And the same thing can happen in the bond market. And the regulation we've had coming in recent years, in my view, can exacerbate the fallout that we'll have.
I would ask, of the three here, bonds, Greece, or China concerns you, which of the three concerns you the most?
Bonds, because the bond market, if you take those categories, that's the biggest beast out there. Greece is extremely important to the Greek people, and sure, financial markets the world all over have been reacting to it, but mostly what's been happening is that the debt that the Greek people own is held by supranational institutions, by the IMF, the European Union, the European Central Bank. And so if there are losses, well, these losses have been socialized. Whereas, of course, for the Greek people, it's very dramatic. Now, as far as China is concerned, China had been moving in the right direction on many metrics, a very slow pace. And this is a huge setback. in many ways it's like the tulip mania we had in the Netherlands, and so it's part of the learning process, but it sets China back a few years, and it's just the sort of policies that are being introduced right now just don't make any sense, no matter how you look at them. And with the implication though for global markets could be that if you're not allowed to sell many stocks, but you get a margin call, you can't sell them because they're closed, or whatever it may be, but you get a margin call, you might have to sell something else, or you might have to sell some commodities because they might have had access to commodities. But there can be a little bit of ripple effect. The other thing that can happen if it's severe enough is that the Asian consumer or the Chinese consumer might be buying a little bit less because they gambled away all the money. And so some luxury good items might not be as much in demand, but we'll get through that. But all of this in the context of asset prices that are very vulnerable. There's a lot of complacency in them, and anything can get fear back into the market. And with hindsight, we can say, oh, it was Greece, oh, it was China. Well, the fact is, we're due for a correction, a very severe one, in my view, in both stocks and bonds. And in the end, we'll blame one of these things. But the ultimate problem is that central banks have taken fear out of the market, but the world is still a risky place, and at some point we'll wake up and have to deal with that.
I couldn't agree with your points any clearer than that. And don't you also have a product line that kind of is great for someone who's looking at investing to kind of counteract or position themselves in a situation where they can counterbalance what's going on in the economy right now?
Well, as I indicated earlier, there is no easy answer to do when we don't like stocks and bonds. Well, what the hell you do? And what we do, we have a couple of tools that we encourage investors to consider. And we're not saying that they're the best things in sliced bread, they're the answers to everything, but you've got to look around and find different ways of diversifying. And so we have a couple of mutual funds focusing on the currency space, and then we have a gold ETF and a gold exchange-traded fund, and it's an exchange-traded fund where you can actually take delivery of the gold if that's what you wanted to do. On the currency side, we have a fund that's a play on a falling dollar. That fund has been losing less money than other funds have. So it's been losing money because obviously the dollar has been getting stronger, but if one thinks that we're going to have a turnaround, that's a fund people can look at. We have an absolute return currency fund that's agnostic versus the dollar. Okay. And that's key goal is to have uncorrelated returns. So taking a position of the New Zealand dollar versus the Australian dollar. We have an Asian currency fund that's a play on a rising renminbi. And so they're little specialized funds. And the one that's the most popular right now is our gold trust. OUNZ is the symbol.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Yeah.
Could you expand upon that? You mentioned it's redeemable as well.
Yes. So what we do is, like other gold ETFs, we hold London bars in London, and most people will be happy to just hold the ETF as is. But if somebody ever wants to take delivery of the gold, we can facilitate that. And not only can they take delivery of the London bars, at the time they request delivery, they can say we'd rather own coins, and you can do a tax-free exchange when you take delivery. So you're taking delivery of what you already own. You have an ownership in the underlying gold. You just tell us you want to take delivery of it, and by the way, I'd like to have it converted into a coin. And,
that's amazing.
And so it's a unique feature that nobody else has. Our feature is not just theoretical. We have done numerous deliveries. We have a patent on the process. We think it's a scalable process, and we're very excited about it. And it's a product that's available on the New York Stock Exchange for anybody to buy.
Well, currently, what's the price of the symbol?
Well, it's trading at about 1/100th of the price of gold, and the symbol is OUNZ. We call it. Yes.
Okay. Now, don't you also have a newsletter?
Yes, we have a newsletter. We don't charge for it. At mercinvestments.com, anybody can sign up for it. And there we discuss global dynamics and the Fed, the dollar. We do discuss Greece and China to the extent it affects global dynamics. We're also on Twitter. I'm quite active on Twitter. And that's really the most imminent interpretation anybody can get on news by following people like myself on Twitter that provide that as a service.
And if somebody wanted to reach out and speak with you or one of your clients there, how can a client reach, I should say?
Well, at mercinvestments.com, there's a big, like an easy button. Click on the question mark, and then you can get in touch with us.
Well, vielen Dank. Thank you, sir.
My pleasure.
All right.